Olá pessoal, eu estou aqui agora no The Last of Us de um vídeo parte 2 para a gente gravar não só a história, o modo volta. Eu até penso em fazer alguma coisa, só que em outro formato, que eu penso que ele é mais longo, tudo isso é mais focado na gameplay, essas coisas. Aproveitando que eu tô no The Last of Us parte 2, o Remaster para o PS5, que tem novas com mais coisinha. Eu não acho que vale 250, né? Mas tem umas coisinhas novas, pelo menos. Só que pelo menos tem, né? Então, a gente vai aqui embaixo 2, é o que tem fases perdidas. Isso daí é que mostra as fases que estavam em desenvolvimento, que iria estar no jogo, mas a Naughty Dog descartou no lançamento, quando foi lançar o jogo. A gente vai pro esgoto de Seattle. Ele ia parar no esgoto de Seattle, numa parte da história. Então vamos lá.
In this second deleted level, which is an extended sequence of the sewers in Seattle, this comes on the heels of where Ellie goes into a building and she survives an attack by stalkers and gets thrown out of a window and gets swept away by the current, and then we cut this section that used to be there in the final game. Now you will get to play it. So this was a way to get a bit more interesting puzzles, interesting traversal, figure out how Ellie can navigate the sewers with the fighting current. Ultimately, with a lot of these levels and these sequences, the reason why we cut them were for pacing purposes. But here it is for you in this very kind of raw form that part of it will feel finished, parts of it will feel like assets are missing as far as audio, animation won't be final, but it's a glimpse into what a game looks like when it's months away from finishing. Enjoy.
Eita! Já começa assim. Nossa, já ia começar tudo. Eita! Tem uma parte de ação que isso. Essa eu não estava esperando. Essa eu não estava esperando. Sai daqui, tá. Pensava que ia ser só paz igual a outra fase de Jax. Segura nessa corrida toda difícil. Tem que controlar aqui. Nossa. E aí?
Delícia. Onde que eu tô?
O que era pra ter? Vamos ver essa
fase
fase aqui.
Immediate goal for the player, but being able to climb out is not going to be so easy. To keep levels interesting and engaging, we alternate between positive and negative values the player experiences. Here, it's a positive to have found a ladder, but then a negative to discover it's not the solution. But then another positive to identify the next short-term goal of the doorway. By alternating between these opposing values, we give players what they expect, but not how they expect it.
Será que dá pra chegar pra lá? Na outra parte? Vamos ver. Vai. Calma ele. Antes de ir pra aquela escada lá, vamos explorar um pouquinho aqui, porque tem um diálogo que eu li aqui. Corre.
This level, internally known as Find Nora, was quite long in duration as we had to make Ellie traverse a far distance to the opposite side of downtown Seattle. The sewer section was originally longer than what we released the game with, approximately 10 minutes more. This was one of the few areas of the game that used water flow as part of a traversal puzzle. The player has to go upstream to use the current to get to the platform to reach the other side. We mostly cut this mechanic game-wide, however it remained in essence in the section swimming to the aquarium as Ellie when you were avoiding the waves.
Beleza. Tem mais coisa aqui? Acho que não. Aí, sobe. Opa, tem coisa aqui, tem coisa
When
aqui.
players reach the doorway and enter into the room, they're faced with a dead end. The real reason for this dead end room is that on the reversal, when exiting back out of the doorway, players are faced with the route onwards. A pipe that they'd not been able to see when they were swept past it on the way in, and something that was hidden from view when on the side platforms. The intention here being that the only option is to go off the standard path in order to search for a way out.
Peraí, tem aqui. Pula.
Ah, me tira desse lugar, caralho. Ah.
Throughout the rest of the level, we also used light to indicate to the player that they were heading in the right direction. At each turn, however, we blocked the direct route forward. Players would know that they just have to keep finding alternative paths, promoting those feelings of being desperate and trapped.
Mais coisa aqui. Opa.
We
Lanterna
slowly
ruim.
introduced the player to consider
Essa
climbing
mecânica
into
acho muito
small
legal.
pipes and crouching in these tight spaces. This is to slowly build up to and encourage the player to climb into such a small pipe that they'd have to be crawling on their stomach, which is something that the player previously may not have recognised as a playable space, let alone the desired route they need to take.
Subindo e
Se mover
saindo.
entre canos aqui.
É só continuar subindo e sair.
Mas como eu tava falando, essa mecânica de lanterna quando tá assim no controle eu acho muito legal. É uma imersão muito legal de se jogar.
We added a tiny space just to reward the player's exploration with a pickup item, and we made sure it was something that made sense that you'd find in this area. A canister and all the garbage that had been washed into the sewers from the surface.
A coisa aqui. Opa. Uma coisinha aqui. Ih, vai ter batalha? Porque pra ter esses itens todos, não deve ser só uma coisa pra ver não. Olha. E todas as aqui de melhoria, tudo isso. Aí vai ter alguma coisa aí.
We love the idea of making Ellie prone through a tiny, dirty pipe in order to get out, as it was a great opportunity to use our prone mechanic. A unique camera setup was created to support crawling in these pipes, as the standard prone camera is much higher above the player. We also created custom collision in order for Ellie to maneuver in these tight spaces easily. Initially, the oblong collision capsule around her character caused issues crawling around corners. We put extra effort into the custom corner collision, so the movement experience is as smooth as the main game.
Tá, antes de avançar só eu vou ver o que tem naquela porta. Eu sei pelo que ele falou, não vai ter nada, só um sem saída, mas vamos explorar um pouquinho. Ué, não dá? O principal tem que explorar antes.
Porra.
Deixa, jogo.
Certo.
Caraca,
Não
velho.
perde a cabeça, Ellie.
Pra quem tem claustrofobia, nossa, andar por esses túneis. Não precisa nem ter, né? Às vezes só pode ter um nervoso, não sei, de só andar nessa lama toda aí que a Ellie tá passando. No esgoto.
In order for the player to feel cramped, claustrophobic and desperate, we'd been enforcing the traversal mechanics that allow for a tight environment which promote these feelings. We introduced the use of the squeeze through so that we can keep the player feeling enclosed and tight, but without repeating the same geometry. Here we change from low ceilings with wider walls to high ceilings and tight walls to change up the spatial pacing and keep the level from repeating itself.
Espremer. Não.
Que se foda o universo.
Nossa, é muito claustrofóbico esse esgoto em Seattle, hein?
Aqui é um lugar bem merda pra morrer.
Tudo abandonado. É. Praticamente ninguém vai se ver. Ninguém vai ver. Uma parte boa.
Originally, we had the water line much higher here, so players had to swim through this tight tunnel. However, from watching user test feedback, it was occasionally causing people to discount the route entirely and turn back on themselves. So to avoid any risk of this happening in the final game, we present a lower water level so the tunnel is easy to see and commit to using. Although this isn't as impactful without the prone swim, it's the better decision as it means a smoother experience for the player with no backtracking frustration.
Ok. Espera-me aí.
As we surface from the water and over the crest of the slope, we reveal what is further in this tunnel. A clicker that has sprouted and the fungus has grown on the sides of the pipe. It was great to see people who user tested this area becoming increasingly worried as we forced the player to squeeze past the fungus and inches away from the clicker's face, all the time not being sure whether the clicker might be alive or attack them. Although we aren't as cruel as to force a clicker attack in such close proximity, we do have a payoff for this moment. This clicker momentarily turned into Joel to show Ellie's PTSD from what happened to Joel at the start of the game. Ultimately, we decided to save this moment for the farm level, as it was more impactful there because it could become the centerpiece of that experience. Whereas in the sewers, we weren't able to make it as much of a narrative point and give it the breathing room and reaction time that it deserves, given the tight space.
Ok. Falou que trocou várias coisas, né?
Merda.
Vai ter um instalador aqui mesmo, então? Nossa, tem 6 balas. Não tá esperando pessoal, não. Tá esperando só paz aqui. Eita. Bem que falou. Calminha. Calminha. Eita. Tá, moça, só sei que tá parado.
Ah, merda! Ah!
Ai, ai, ai. Eu voltei? Ah não, acho que eu só fui pra outro local parecido.
Por aqui que eu
Vai que a parte lá do Joel. Mas jogo é assim, né? Programa, daí substitui pra fazer jogo é assim mesmo, né? Aproveita, aí coloca o espaço em outro lugar. Tem alguma coisa aqui? Sabe? Aqui.
Using this pipe is retained in the iteration we're shipped with, as it's the last of the extreme methods Ellie has to undergo in order to escape the sewers, and what she will go through in her pursuit of revenge.
Quietinho, 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 quietinho. Opa. Calma, 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 Ellie. A gente passou pra cá.
The last ladder climb is quite lengthy, and although we could have trimmed it down to a shorter climb, we liked how this last segment of the journey built anticipation,
for
whether there was success at the top or not after all you've been through. Ultimately, the ladder exits out into the subway station, which is how it connects in the final game. Ellie then has to find her way to the hospital from here, crossing paths with the scars for the first time.
Ah, perto da parte de cicatrizes, é mesmo. Faz um tempinho que não zero a história. Algumas coisas aqui é difícil lembrar. Eu zerei no PS4. Esse lançamento assim. Então faz um tempo. E acabou? É isso? Isso foi. Eu esperava que ia ser mais coisa, né? Porque tem arma pra usar, Eu pensava que ia ter mais confronto, tudo isso, mas foi bem legal, porque é fase de teste, acho por isso que não teve, né? Mas bom pra mostrar que fazer jogo não é simples. E muita coisa é descartada, né? Muita coisa que seria legal colocar, mas eles não colocar por um bom motivo. Às vezes, se essa parte no jogo final não ficaria bom, ficaria meio arrastado, talvez, no jogo final, se conectaria, não sei. Pode ser isso, depende. Eu acho que termina aqui, né? Já terminou as fases, então, tchau.